Today's video is a response to a viewer question. Thank you, Mary. She said, I would like to hear about what your Kundalini experience was like. So this is hard to know where to start on this point because it's really been a process over a number of years, let's say 10 years. And I'm still trying to make sense of everything that happened. I journaled at the time, and I've got a whole set of journals which I'm slowly having a little look through to try and remember exactly how things were sequenced. But I'm just going to focus on the actual moment that the Kundalini activated, because for me it was a very exact moment that I felt something had shifted. So first to say, I'd been under a lot of stress for an extended period. And that period came to an end quite abruptly. That's my dog playing with her toy. Hopefully it's not going to disturb the video. So I was able to relax a little bit for the first time in many, many years. I think that was definitely a catalyst for it. But anyway, at the time I was training as a counsellor. I'm actually a qualified counsellor. And I was in a therapy session, so I'd gone to see my counsellor, and the week previous I'd actually been feeling quite strange, a feeling which I described as feeling like I was going to float away. So there was a lightness, probably related to the stress I'd been under, which is a very heavy feeling. I'd suddenly felt a lightness, but literally as if my body was gonna float away. That's how I described it at the time. It's very strange. And disturbing as well, because obviously I'm in a physical body, but I've got this feeling that I'm going to float away somewhere. It didn't really make sense. So anyway, I went to therapy, which I was going every week at the time, and I mentioned to my counsellor that I'd been having this feeling that I was going to float away. And then actually in the session I did leave my body, and my consciousness was somewhere up, not very far, just above my body here, and I totally panicked because that was completely outside my belief system. I didn't believe that was possible. Luckily my counsellor was very calm and didn't panic, and I returned to my body. But at that moment I felt completely different. What I understand now is that my chakras had activated. My heart chakra and my sacral chakra were very, very activated, and I also had an intense anxiety. I think I'd been struggling or suffering from anxiety for a very long time, but I had not felt it in that way. So that was the first thing that happened. I was very disoriented, but I went home and I just thought it would go away. It was like a very, very intense energy. I didn't have that word for it at the time. I can describe it as energy now, that's how I understand it. But at the time it was just like an intense feeling that I had no word to describe. Anyway, that night I went to sleep, and in the middle of the night I woke up and I literally felt like I'd been plugged into the mains electric. I was actually looking around. I mean, it was an intense feeling of electricity, I would say. I was actually looking around to see if there was a live wire somewhere that I had maybe touched my bed. Obviously that doesn't really make sense because I would be in extreme agony. It wasn't that kind of pain. It was an intense energy that I felt. Again, had no context for this. I couldn't explain what was happening to me. It was just a very, very intense feeling. I had heard of Kundalini, but my understanding was that it was related to Eastern religions, and I was a Christian at the time, so that I didn't really make that connection between what I was experiencing and what it was. It was kind of in the back of my mind. But for the first year after that happened, I kept just hoping and thinking this feeling would go away, but it didn't. And after a year I actually met with Bonnie Greenwell, who has passed away now, but she was a leading expert in the Western world in Kundalini. And she used to do a Kundalini assessment where you would fill out a form and she would evaluate your experiences and kind of give an indication as to whether it was Kundalini or not. That was about a year afterwards. But yeah, that was the moment that it happened for me. I'm going to post more about this because, like I said, it's been a very long process, over about 10 years. And it's interesting for me to recap and think about what happened and how I made sense of it. So if anyone has a question, if you have more questions, please continue to post them in the comments and I will get back to you. Have a lovely day.